Is Kansas ever going to beat Kansas State? It certainly doesn't feel like it after another loss, this time maybe the most embarrassing of the Lance Leipold era.
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on? Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day, and thank you to the everydayers catching each and every episode of the show, including when we have to torment over things like this. Kansas gets dominated, quite frankly, by Kansas State, who spotted them 7 points early, and it still didn't matter. They lose the game in, honestly, kind of blowout fashion at the very end of the game. I'm going to break down why I think this is the worst loss of the Lance Leipold era at Kansas, what it means for KU moving forward this season and the future of the program. Also get into our, plays that swung the game K-State's way, moments of the game, stats of the game, awards of the game, game ball. I don't know. Are we going to get to game balls? It doesn't feel like we should give any out, so maybe we'll just talk more about the state of the program as we continue on this episode. And today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward with Mazda. Move and be moved. Kansas loses to Kansas State, and in a series where the last couple of years you had lost close and it was excruciating and games that you felt like honestly you should have won, this was not one of those. This was one where they just came in and spanked you. They came in and dominated this football game. They came in and, they spotted you 7 points, and it still did not matter. This was never really – and honestly, this was not a game where Kansas State, you look at the total yards and stuff, this was a game that KU lost with again, more self-inflicted mistakes, with the lack of ability to hit big plays themselves, with an inability to move the ball, quite frankly, on the offensive end of the football. And I really thought this was a game where it felt like K-State, and this is not this is not a new thing for KU in terms of there have been other games that KU has felt like I don't want to say play, but has approached the game plan to the game, or the play calling, or the coaching, or the play. I don't know how you want to knock it out, but has been not aggressive, or has been one where they have played almost timid to a certain standpoint. And again, I don't know if that's playing, I don't know if that's coaching, I don't know if that's play calling or what, but point being, you approached this game and called plays in this game like the rain was going to be the biggest thing stopping you, and you had to throw a bunch of short passes and run the football over and over again. And I think it was Devin Neal who tweeted during the game, they're just playing man coverage every play and daring KU to beat them, and they just couldn't. And how much of that was the KU players just not winning their matchups? I'm sure there's at least a part of it to that, but how much of that was not attacking to that and just, K-State saying, hey, we don't think you're going to, because you look at how many times did K-State throw a deep ball in this game? It was a pretty good amount. Obviously you think of the Jace Brown touchdown that made it 35-17 that kind of put the game away. But you think of the deep ball to Jace Brown to get to the 1 yard line that eventually made it later with the touchdown, 28-14. You think of the deep post route that they threw where KU didn't play it aggressively enough, and Jace Brown just, I forget, it was that one Jace Brown too, but boxes out the defender and catches it inside the KU 10-yard line to the 6. I think that was the drive that K-State tied it 7-7. How often did KU throw deep balls? How often did KU take shot plays? How often did KU even throw to the intermediate range of the field? It did not feel like very much at all. And I think part of it, you tip your cap to K-State, who played a great game, and they clearly scouted KU very well. And this is kind of something I've said leading into it. They're yes, Lance Leipold's been good off bye weeks, but how many of those bye weeks have been where KU's been off the bye and the opponent has not been off the bye? When KU plays a team where the other team is on a bye week and they scout KU well, you look at what K-State did to the KU defense, you look at what Cincinnati did to the KU defense off a bye. If KU was playing an opponent off the bye, I'm just going to start chalking it up to a loss. I'm also just going to, every year, I'm going to start chalking up every time you play K-State to a loss as well. That's what it feels like here. It feels like you're never going to see them beat K-State. And this is certainly frustrating, and it's unfortunate and everything, but that's just kind of where I'm at. I made the mistake this week of being you know what? I've said all along that I'm gonna wait to pick KU in a game against K-State until I see it happening, and then I convince myself KU is gonna win the game. Well, I'm the idiot now, so I think that's kind of where we're at with this. Is I'm not going to pick KU to ever beat K-State in my lifetime until I see it happens. And that's unfortunate. Ever since I've watched KU, ever since I went to KU and, so forth, I've never seen KU beat K-State. It just is what it is, I guess, at this point in time. Like, K-State is KU's daddy in this series. That's just what it is. I know it sounds crappy and it's unfortunate to talk about, but it's true. It's 100% what it is. You've lost 17 straight in this series. It's despicable. And yeah, I mean, you couldn't even keep it a game here. You came in with the better record. You came in favored and you got blown out. Insane, man. Insane. Jalon Daniels struggled. Clearly the rain is not Jalen's friend. I was trying to think, like, how many games have we seen Jalon play in inclement weather or in rain? It's not as many as you would think because of some of the injuries. I definitely think the rain is not something that Jalon plays well in. I think we saw a little bit of that in this game. But I don't even know if this is a rivalry anymore. It's just a rite of passage for K-State, and it just feels like no matter what's going to happen, like they're going to come out on top here. Jalon struggled. The KU's defense is just not good. I think that's kind of where we're at with this. And then, the first play of the game, your special teams goes down and makes a huge play for you. You force a fumble. You end up going down and scoring a touchdown, of which, honestly, like, did Jalon fumble or did he not? I think probably a little bit lucky in KU's favor there. But point being, even after that play, you still found a way to give up a big special teams play to equalize there, right? To where even that big special teams play that led to a touchdown your way ended up being neutralized by the special teams touchdown you gave up later in the game. So it was just a wash. In a game where you had an opportunity for it to be a big advantage for you, it was just not. And it's, again, we talk about this all the time. It's the stupid plays in the series, right? It's the bad snap that leads to the K-State touchdown on special teams. It's game management. KU ends up getting a touchdown at the end of the first half and K-State doesn't score. But I swear, man, that was still not good game management. You were running hurry up with 4:30 to go in the first half before you got a touchdown. It's like, no, be patient. Run the clock. Like, you do not want them getting the football back late. And then Kansas is the one who uses a timeout with, like, whatever it was, 38 seconds or something in the goal-to-go situation against K-State. Instead of it being K-State using the timeout, that was dumb. And again, it ended up working out for KU. K-State didn't score with the ball with like 30 seconds left in the game, and KU ended up getting a touchdown. But again, bad process there. KU's addicted to throwing on 3rd and 1 when, to me, those should be like, if you want to throw on 3rd and 1 in your own territory, I actually have no problem with it because those are situations where you might not go for it on 4th down. When you're in plus territory, which was the case in a couple of their 3rd and 1s, when it's like, hey, you're at their 35, you're at their 40, you're at their 30-yard line, you might go for this 4th down regardless. Run the ball on 3rd down because if you lose a yard or if you get stuffed, you can still go for 4th and 2, you can still go for 4th and 1. Versus if you throw the ball and it gets intercepted or you get sacked and it's now 4th down and 11, you can't go for it on the 4th down again. I don't know why they keep doing that over and over again. That's a little frustrating. Just the plays where, yeah, Jalon throws the interception off Keaton Kubeka's hands. Is it one that Keaton Kubeka probably wished that he would have caught? Probably. Also, it was a bad pass. It was certainly behind him. This one, too, from a game management perspective, like, would it have mattered? No, I don't think it would have because, again, K-State wins the game by 25. But, like, you're down 28-14, and you kick a field goal on, I think it was 4th and 9, 4th and 10, 4th and 11, somewhere in that range. You kick a field goal, tip of the cap to Leif Marjan, who makes the kick. Like, good on him for making it on a long field goal on a raining day. But, like, that should factor into it, too. The fact that, like, that's going to be a harder kick in the rain. But even if it's perfect ideal conditions, you're down 14 in a game where you cannot stop them. You have to go for that. You have to try to get a touchdown there. They played to keep it close as opposed to playing to win the game. And that is so incredibly frustrating. Again, I don't know that it would have mattered, but yeah, I guess the other notes I had written down, like, again, like, I think that was probably Jalon Daniels' worst game. Came at an unfortunate moment. Like, I guess Jalon Daniels just isn't going to have it. He's had some very good moments, very good games at KU. I don't want to take away from that. He had been having a great year coming up into this game. This was his worst game of the season, and unfortunately, I just don't know that there's going to be a signature win in Jalon's career. The K-State offensive line worked the KU defensive line in pass blocking. KU wasn't able to get anything there. And then here's the other thing, like, going back to the idea that it felt like K-State play called aggressive, whereas with KU, it felt like they play called more afraid of the rain. How many explosive plays did K-State have? There's at least a handful I can think of off the top of my head, whether it's deep passes or whatever. How many explosive plays did KU have? Struggling to think of any, right? So I think kind of the bottom line here is this. Lance Leipold sucks against rivals. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. KU's defense isn't very good. KU just can't beat K-State, and it feels like I don't know when that's going to end. You're going to Manhattan next year. You're going to have kind of a rebuilding year. And honestly, at this point, a bowl game's in doubt. You're 4-4. How many of these games are you going to be favored in down the stretch? I think you'll be favored against Oklahoma State. Outside of that, I think you're going to be an underdog in the other 3 games. What does this all mean to recruits? You've got a really good recruiting class in the class of 2026, especially in state. What does this mean? Because they're seniors in high school. They would have been 1 year old, 0 years old, depending when they were born, the last time that KU beat K-State. Are you going to get any decommits out of this? Are you going to get any flips to K-State? What does it mean for the class of 2027, 2028? I don't know. And I kind of said, I guess this is where I'm kind of at, because obviously this is the most frustrating loss, and I think this is the worst loss of the Lance Leipold era for both what it means as the program overall and this season for KU, because all offseason long, I kind of said, win 6 or 7 games, make it to a bowl game, and beat one of your rivals. Beat K-State or Missouri and make it to a bowl game, and that's a successful season. I don't know that they're going to make a bowl game anymore, and you didn't beat either of your rivals. So it kind of feels like this season's going to be a failure now. And that adds to the disappointment from this game, a game that you were finally favored over K-State. And I mean, certainly over the last 3 times you played K-State, you played them closer than you did today. And just a very disappointing outing all the way around. Let's get to our moments and plays of the game that determined it, our stats of the game, our awards of the game, if we can call it that, game balls, and plenty more. This is Locked on Jayhawks. And today's episode of the show is brought to you by Mazda, moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. These are the moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, they move culture, and they keep the game moving forward. I'm struggling to find a moment that moved the game forward. I guess, do we go back to Leif Marjan? Every time Leif Marjan hits a long field goal for KU, it's a good moment for Kansas. But then I guess the last 2 weeks, after it happened, KU couldn't do anything. So, I don't know. I guess I feel good about the kicking game for KU with Leif Marjan moving forward. Okay. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to every Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Very frustrating day, and I'm sorry for KU fans here. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. You can give us a follow at D Johnson Radio, at LO Jayhawks. Real quick, I will say, quick jump ahead to the awards of the game. Shout out to I was at the KU game with my wife. It was our anniversary. Unfortunately, this sucks, and it's sad. My wife turns to me as we're walking back to the car and goes, I feel like our anniversary is ruined. So that sucks. So thank you to that one. Obviously we're going to turn around. We'll have a good night. But anyway, point being, thank you so much to we're going to give out our award listeners of the game. I had shout out to Dave, shout out to Mort, shout out to you for being optimistic at halftime. It did not work out in the second half, but I appreciate the optimism. Shout out to Daryl, shout out to Jack, all of you guys. And by the way, Daryl, I hope you're enjoying Lucia's in Effingham, but shout out to all you guys for coming by, saying hi, and that you listen to the show. I really do appreciate you guys, and really do appreciate everybody. I don't know what is going to be in store for the rest of the season. Are we going to turn more to basketball content? I guess we'll let the listeners decide on that one and see how things go, but certainly unfortunate there. But thank you to you guys, and thank you to the rest of the everydayers who certainly tune in each and every day of the show. I think our moments of the game, like, in the quick moment where you thought, like, legitimately, I'm sure other KU fans felt this way too. First play of the game, you force the kickoff fumble, you recover, you eventually go down, you get a touchdown, and you're up 7-0. And at that point, I certainly thought this. Again, I'm sure other people thought this too. Kansas is winning this game. Because what has defined this series and what has defined Kansas losing in this series? It's the dumb plays, it's the stupid mistakes, it's the special teams plays, it's the self-inflicted mistakes. And it felt like at that moment in time, the tide is turning. K-State's the one making the dumb special teams play. This is how it all comes together, comes full circle. Turns out it didn't. K-State just spotted KU the points. They ended up getting them back later on the and honestly, that might be the play of the game, is when KU gave up the special teams touchdown on the other end on the long snap. I would also say, like, them getting up that 4th and 1 when they were up 7 in the second half, that was a key moment in the game as well. You had made it 21-14. You weren't able to capitalize early in the second half offensively, but you had an opportunity. If you would have made that stop, to turn the momentum, they get the first down. And I feel like that. And then the nail in the coffin play, I guess you would say, was the long ball from Avery Johnson to Jace Brown. there was a huge difference in this game in man-to-man coverage. As we mentioned earlier, Devin Neal tweeted that out for KU. When Kansas was in man coverage defensively, Avery Johnson trusted his receivers and they made plays. When K-State was in man coverage, K-State didn't win far enough or wasn't aggressive enough or didn't attack it downfield enough. I don't know what it was. But the difference of when you had a one-on-one matchup for K-State versus the KU DBs versus the KU receivers versus the K-State DBs, it was a stark difference. And that's certainly unfortunate because it didn't feel like coming into this game that K-State had a huge advantage at the receiver and corner or the receiver and DB positions, right? Maybe you can make an argument they had a slight advantage, or you could make an argument Kansas had a slight advantage, but it felt like it was relatively close between the two. Certainly didn't feel that way on Saturday between these two games. I would say the stat of the game, I mean, honestly, you could probably point to the sacks. Like that would be one of them. In a game where, okay, so KU was coming off the Texas Tech loss where you give up 9 sacks and you didn't know exactly like what the offensive line was going to look like, even though the games before you had only given up, I think it was 6 sacks coming into that game. And this was the game too, where like Kansas State, you looked at them and we kind of brought this up in the week leading up, the fact that like, you know, they were really good in like sack rate. The PFF like pressure grade wasn't great, but certainly, you know, you felt like there was something there. And K-State out-sacked you 4-0. KU doesn't have a sack their last 2 games on the defensive end of the field. So, you know, you give up 36-0 in sack yards. Like that's one of the stats of the game. I would also say turnovers was one of the stats of the game, in a game where, again, we've talked about over and over again that feels like KU makes more of the stupid plays over and over again. And yes, K-State had that opening fumble, but after that, KU wound up with the next, 3 or 4 turnovers after that point in time. Let's see. K-State had 2 fumble recoveries and had 2 interceptions. See, I was 4-1 from that point on. So, yeah. That's kind of a difference there in terms of, you know, certainly one of the big stats of the game. And then the other big stat of the game, I mean, KU only have 247 total yards of offense in this game. You could point to a lot of things here. 2.8 yards per carry. That's bad. Honestly, this is what I want to make the stat of the game. K-State averaged 21 yards per completion. They only completed 11 passes. K-State only averaged 3.9 yards per carry. If you would have told me coming in that K-State was only going to complete 11 passes in 3.9 yards per carry, I would have thought KU won the game. But KU only averaged 7.6 yards per completion, not per attempt, yards per completion. If you're looking at yards per attempt, KU was under 4 yards per attempt passing. If you're at like 6 yards per attempt passing, you're like the worst in the country. So that was a horrific game for KU throwing the football. And again, I think they were a little too afraid of the rain. Maybe part of it was, you know, maybe they had right to be afraid of the rain. Maybe that, you know, the personnel just wasn't great in the rain. It felt like it was kind of a combination there. But yeah, that's the big difference in the game. K-State 21 yards per completion, KU at 7.6 yards per completion. Our awards of the game, we're going to give the we give out the listeners of the game. Please stop this moving forward of the game. That's going to go to running it on 2nd and a mile. How often does KU get, like, whether it's a sack or a penalty or something, where it's like 2nd and 20, 2nd and 15, and they run like a halfback draw for like 3 yards, and now it's 3rd and 12. If it's 2nd and 10, I don't have a problem running the ball, because if you get it to 3rd and 6, that makes things a lot easier, opens up your playbook. But when it's 2nd and 15, a 4 or 5 yard run doesn't change anything for you. Just throw it twice. I don't know that maybe that's too new school of me, but I that's how I feel. The Thanos, all that for a drop of blood award, that goes to, there was like 3 minutes in the 3rd quarter. Jalon Daniels are on the plus side of the field. I think they're at the plus 44. Jalen's like scrambling around, reverses field. There's a good little scramble by him, then throws to Cam Pickett behind the line of scrimmage, jukes by a guy, breaks a tackle, and all that for 0 yard gain. And at that moment, it was kind of like, okay, it feels like nothing KU is doing is easy. And even things that they're making look like, oh, wow, what a spectacular play, like that one was. And it's like, oh, that was a 0 yard gain, which kind of defined the game in a lot of ways. All right, let's try to give out our game balls next. This is Locked on Jayhawks. And this episode of Locked on Jayhawks is brought to you by DoorDash. It is the weekend. Let's look back and crown this week's MVP on who delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streak, saving more every time you order, these plays delivered when it mattered most. I'm going to go with Daniel Highshaw for Kansas. I thought, obviously, his second game back off injury, I thought he looked pretty fresh in the first half. Obviously, the second half of play for KU, you weren't able to establish the run, I don't think, as well as you did in the first half. But overall, 19 carries, 67 yards, and a touchdown. KU wasn't able to move the ball. And again, I think those numbers were better in the first half. I thought Highshaw looked really good in the first half. I don't think the run blocking was as good in the second half. But, I thought Highshaw delivered and did enough there that if you would have been able to open up the game a little bit more, in the air and try to make their DBs back off a little bit, they were really able to creep up. I thought Highshaw would have had an even bigger game, and considering where he's been coming off the injury, the way he played against Tech, the way now he played against K-State, I do feel good about Highshaw moving forward the rest of the season. And just like Daniel Highshaw delivered for Kansas, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday and keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season's here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Honestly, right now, thinking about putting $5 down on Oklahoma State money line next week. But I don't know, maybe I'm being too much of a downer right now. Come next Thursday or Friday, maybe we'll switch that around. But point being, more positive. Darren Peterson looked awesome against Louisville. Darren Peterson won an award plus 900 over at FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can check us out at LO_Jayhawks there, and you can find us on YouTube or anywhere you hear podcasts. And then thank you to the all the great listeners who tune into the show no matter what. We will be back on Monday. I don't know. We were originally going to talk biggest takeaways from this game for KU State. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll shift more to basketball. Haven't fully decided yet. But our game balls from this one, I guess if we have to give one out to the offense for KU, do we go with Daniel Highshaw? I guess Cam Pickett, 6 catches for 40 yards for KU on 8 targets. I mean, Emmanuel Henderson was taken away from this one, 8 targets for just 24 yards. Cam Pickett was kind of the most consistent. K-State seemed to have KU scouted a lot better than KU had K-State scouted. Some of the short throws and easy completions KU normally would have, K-State was all over it. And it didn't feel like that was the other way around. But I guess point being, we'll give Cam Pickett the game ball. Honestly, I don't want to give a game ball to offense. I'm just going to give a second game ball to the defensive side of the ball. Well, do they deserve? I don't know. See, I feel silly even giving a game ball to really either side of the field for KU, which kind of speaks to how this game went. I will give one to Blake Harrell on the defensive side. He had 7 tackles, which led KU, which is difficult to do as a defensive tackle, and shows that he had a really good game. He had a pass breakup. There weren't a lot of plays where I felt like KU was able to get pressure or do much to Avery Johnson, but it did feel like the occasions where it was like, hey, a defensive tackle beat, this guard or whoever and was able to at least get semi-close or break through and, get to a defensive or a running back. I did feel like that was Blake Harrell consistently. So I do think those him leading the team in tackles did back up kind of the eye test of him playing a good game. So that would be my answer. I guess I'm just going to give one game ball for the defense. It's going to go to Blake Harrell, and then we have, I guess, the one special teams one to Leif Marjan, making a tough kick, 47 yards in rain. Not an easy thing to do, but yeah, man, it just feels like K-State. Obviously, K-State's got KU's number. It feels like every time you play them, you get out-coached, you make more mistakes, and they seem to scout you better. They seem to scheme you better. They seem to just outperform you in the one-on-one opportunities they have outside of a few moments here or there. It felt like Devin Neal out one-on-one them the last couple of years. And unfortunately it wasn't enough because of some other things that happened. And unfortunately this year you didn't have enough out one-on-ones, and yeah, they dominated you. And K-State owns this series, and I'm not sure when that's going to change, if ever. All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcasts, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. See you next time with LOJ.